When I think of some of the most talented fighters to never win a world title, one of the first names that comes to mind is Britain's greatest ever amateur, Luke Campbell. The former Olympic gold medalist was destined to do big things in the professional ranks, but after multiple failed world title attempts, he was never truly able to live up to the hype he once had following his amateur career. So in today's video, I want to discuss what went wrong for one of the most talented fighters to ever come out of Britain. This is the rise and fall of Cool Hand Luke Campbell. It was clear from early on that Luke Campbell wasn't any ordinary amateur. The young fighter from Hull made history when he won the 2008 European Championship, making him the first Englishman to win a European amateur title since 1961.
Winner of the 2008 European Olympic Championship, favour of Campbell.
From there, he went on to achieve every amateur boxer's dream, which was to qualify for the Olympics, which he did after winning a silver medal at the 2011 World Championships. Representing the host nation, Campbell would make it all the way to the final of the London 2012 Olympics, where he would face Ireland's John Nevin. In a highly competitive fight, Campbell would get the decision and became the first bantamweight to win Olympic gold for Great Britain since 1908.
All the hard work's paid off and dedication, and I'm on such a high right now.
Can you describe your emotions when your arm was raised?
You're lost, you're speechless, you're lost for words, and it's just all the discipline, hard work, all for this, and it's been all worthwhile.
Following the Olympics, Campbell retired from the amateurs with an outstanding final record of 153 wins and 24 losses. After every amateur cycle, there's always a battle between promoters to sign the best talent from the tournament, and Luke had a queue of promoters itching to get his signature. Ultimately, it would be Matchroom that would win the race to sign the gold medalist. On the 13th of July 2013, Luke Campbell would make his eagerly anticipated professional debut in his home city of Hull. The 25-year-old wasted no time in settling into the professional game and stopped his opponent in 90 seconds.
Welcome to the pro game, Luke Campbell. What a way to announce your arrival.
It was a perfect debut for Campbell, and he would continue impressing fans with more stoppage victories, showing he not only had great technical ability, but also possessed decent power. Luke's first test of his professional career came in his 12th fight against fellow Hull fighter Tommy Coyle. Coyle was much more experienced as a professional, having fought for numerous belts in his career, and he certainly had the ability to test the young prospect. Before Coyle would test Luke's skills in the ring, he first tested his skills on the mic, as both men engaged in a war of words prior to the fight.
It's me and you in the ring, let me tell you.
Good.
Nobody else.
There's levels in boxing, and I'm going to show you what level you're at when I take you apart.
The talk was finally over, and the two would clash in the hometown of Hull. The former Olympian looked to be closing the show early when he dropped Coyle with a brutal body shot in the second round. However, Coyle recovered and battled on despite being clearly outclassed for the majority of the fight by the faster and more accurate Luke Campbell. Campbell would break down the resistant Coyle in the 10th round, dropping him multiple times to finish the fight for good. As this was a WBC eliminator fight, Campbell had now propelled himself up the rankings and was en route to fight for a world title. Unfortunately for Campbell, all the momentum he had built up so far in his pro career would be halted when he faced French fighter Ivan Mendy. Mendy would ask questions of Luke Campbell that nobody in his pro career had done thus far, dropping Campbell early into the fight, which was the first time he had been dropped in his professional career. It was clear that Campbell still had plenty of work to do in trying to transition his style to suit the pro game, as he looked out of his depth in there with Mendy. He struggled to land clean and effective shots, as most of his shots were catching Mendy on the gloves. I also noticed that Luke remained very upright, which I've seen in his previous fights, but this time he was punished for it. After 12 mostly one-sided rounds, Mendy would win by split decision, which should have been a clear UD, but if I had a pound for every time I moaned about a bad decision in boxing, I'd be a trillionaire. There was a multitude of issues leading up to this fight for Campbell, such as poor preparation, personal issues and illness, and in his own words, he shouldn't have even been in the ring in the first place. However, despite any pre-fight issues he may have had, Campbell simply couldn't perform at the level required on the night.
It's a big 36 minutes for his career. He learned more in that fight than he's learned in every one of his previous fights put together.
No excuses about your performance this evening?
No, there's no excuses. I mean, I feel as though I did enough to win the fight.
After 3 months away from the ring, Campbell would bounce back in style and knock out Brit Gary Sykes in just 2 rounds to capture the Commonwealth lightweight title. Campbell made some significant changes in his training camp to better himself as a fighter as he moved over to Miami to work with Cuban trainer Jorge Rubio, the former trainer of the likes of David Haye and Amir Khan. In his next fight with his new trainer, Campbell would look to get back on track for a world title shot when he took on former IBF featherweight champion Argenis Mendez for the vacant WBC silver title. The fight initially looked like it was going to be a hard night at the office for Campbell, who was dropped by a sharp right hand in round 2 by Mendez. However, Luke rallied back and controlled the remainder of the fight using his speed advantage to maneuver around the former world champion. Mendez showed the toughness and heart of a great champion, but he was outclassed and Luke would win by unanimous decision. On the 29th of April 2017 in Wembley Stadium, on the undercard of AJ vs Klitschko, Luke would take on Colombian fighter Darles Perez. The winner of the fight would become the #1 contender to challenge for the WBA world title. Campbell took a while to get into the fight due to the awkward style of Perez, and he was losing the early rounds. Campbell came on strong later in the fight and managed to put a dent in the Colombian in round 6 with a left hand. The momentum shifted in Campbell's favour as he was starting to take over the fight. In round 9, Perez was unable to continue due to an injury to his left arm after throwing a left hook. Luke was now officially the mandatory challenger to the WBA world champion Jorge Linares. In Inglewood, California, Campbell would finally compete for a world title against one of boxing's very best. Campbell put on an excellent performance in what was a highly technical affair. The early rounds were tough for Luke as Linares started the sharper out of the two and managed to drop Luke with a big right hand, which also opened up a cut under the right eye of Campbell. Campbell started to have more success in the middle to late rounds, and the fight was extremely close. After 12 rounds of action, I honestly wouldn't have a problem with either man winning, but ultimately Linares would keep hold of his belt, winning by split decision, with the knockdown in round 2 being the deciding factor according to the judges. Despite losing in his first world title attempt, Campbell's stock only rose from this fight, as he proved he could truly hang with the very best in the division. His performance was even more impressive considering what occurred in Luke's personal life leading up to the fight. Campbell revealed that his father passed away only 2 weeks before this fight, something he kept to himself, not telling any media or even close team members. To be able to put such a tragedy to one side and put on a fantastic performance against one of the pound-for-pound best in Linares is extremely impressive and shows the mental fortitude he possesses. On the comeback trail, Luke would face former foe Ivan Mendy. Not only was this a chance to avenge his first professional defeat, but it was also a final eliminator for the WBC world title, currently held at the time by Mikey Garcia. This time Luke would be working with the excellent British trainer Shane McGuigan. Their first fight together against Mendy couldn't have gone any better as Luke showed he was levels above him and looked comfortable in there. After the 12th round concluded, Luke deservedly won by unanimous decision and was now first in line for a shot at the WBC world title. Following his defeat to Errol Spence, Mikey Garcia decided to vacate his WBC lightweight title instead of facing his mandatory challenger Luke Campbell. Meanwhile, a certain 3-division world champion by the name of Vasily Lomachenko put his name forward to face Campbell for the vacant belt, and the fight between Loma and Luke Campbell became official. I felt Campbell did some of his best work early on in this fight, and he was using his natural size advantage to keep Lomachenko at a distance. Near the end of round 5, Loma connected with a series of hooks to the body, which had Campbell in serious trouble. Once the round ended, you could see how much those body shots affected Campbell, as he clearly looked distressed. Although the fight remained highly competitive throughout, I felt Loma, like all elite fighters, was able to go up multiple gears, whereas Campbell wasn't. In the championship rounds, Loma would make the fight much clearer in his favour, especially in round 11, where with just a minute to go, Loma went to the body with hooks once again and followed up with a right hand to the head, which put Campbell down. Luke managed to survive the final round and take Loma the full distance, where he would lose by unanimous decision. It was a fantastic display from Campbell, which reminded many that he was still a top player in the division, as he pushed Loma all the way in the fight.
He's a special fighter. We all knew he was a special fighter.
It just shows how good Lomachenko is when Campbell can put on a very high level performance and still only come away with a few rounds. Loma said after the fight that this was his toughest fight of his career at that point. Despite his second world title attempt not going in his favour, Campbell still had the ambition to become world champion, and he had the perfect opportunity to get back in the world title picture when he was offered the opportunity to take on one of the hottest prospects in the sport, Ryan Garcia.
Lopez needs to put his hands up, and it's down. Ryan Garcia, the hype train rolls on. How did he weather that? Another one, and a hook, and down he goes. Sensational for Ryan Garcia.
Great performance, Garcia.
This was easily the biggest test of Ryan Garcia's professional career at this point, and there were still many questions that hadn't been answered about the young American, such as how good is his chin? And well, Campbell asked that question early in the fight as he landed a pinpoint overhand left, which floored Garcia.
Left hand sits the kid down, and that's what he was.
It was perfectly timed and set up, but unfortunately for Luke, Garcia showed great recovery skills and he wasn't overly hurt. After this crisis moment for Garcia, he remained composed and started out box Campbell. Part of the game plan of Garcia was to go to the body of Campbell, which he did with vicious effect in round 7, landing a crippling left hand to the body of Campbell, which proved too much to recover from, and the fight was over. It turned out to be the last time we would ever see Cool Hand in the ring again, as Campbell would officially announce his retirement from the sport a few months later at just 33 years old. Retiring with a final record of 20 wins, 4 losses, capturing the Commonwealth belt, and challenging for the world title on 2 occasions. So with little in the way of titles, did Campbell completely flop as a professional? Well, not really. He may have not gone on to achieve world title success like many thought he would following his Olympic triumph, but in my opinion, he was victim to the extremely stacked lightweight division at the time. Campbell showed he was certainly capable of winning world titles. Just look at his performance against a prime Jorge Linares, where many thought he even won the fight. He was a highly skillful boxer with great speed and timing and solid power, but he just wasn't quite good enough to beat some truly elite fighters, and there's no shame in that. At the end of the day, Luke took more out of boxing than boxing took out of him. He got rich and left while he was still healthy. He may not have won a world title, but he definitely won in life. For me, he will go down as the greatest British fighter to never win a world title. Let me know your thoughts on Cool Hand Luke Campbell in the comments below, and as always, thanks very much for watching.